Hi guys, so I'm sorry that I haven't posted to my blog or done any videos this week. I've had kind of a crazy weekend last weekend, so I took some time off this week and just didn't really do much of anything, including I didn't post anything. But I wanted to start back up this week, and starting with today's Christian chat. When I first started this video, I honestly had no idea what I was going to talk about. Usually I try to, like, on Saturdays when I do my blog post, I let God inspire me and I write whatever He wants me to do, and then on Sundays, I'll just do a video talking about the topic that I talked about in my blog. Yesterday, of course, I didn't have time to do the blog article, so this week, I'm actually doing the video first, right now, and after this, I'm going to write the blog article that goes along with this video. So I'm kind of letting God inspire me to talk about whatever He wants me to talk about. So now that that's out of the way, I feel led to talk about abandonment this week, probably because I've been dealing with it in my personal life. So before I begin, I wanted to share a little bit about my testimony with you guys. A lot of people have issues talking about their testimonies because when you talk about yourself, it's scary to put your deepest, darkest secrets out there for anybody to hear, for anybody to judge. And so I haven't really ever shared as much as I probably should have, but I'm going to do that today, and despite the fear and stuff, because I feel like God will use my testimony to maybe help somebody else, or maybe one of you guys will be struggling with something similar and we can talk and I can help you guys or whatever. So as some of you know, because most of you guys who are watching this are probably family, my parents are divorced. My dad left my sister and I, he left our family when I was younger, and when he started taking us again, when he got remarried to a woman, and then when I was 14 or 15 back in 2007-ish, there was a bad fight, and there was a lot of yelling, screaming, cussing. There was a lot of verbal abuse going on, and so my sister and I saw a therapist, and the therapist said that we shouldn't see our dad until he comes down for a session with us, and until we can all sit down and talk and everything else, and my dad never showed up. So we went basically 10 years ish without seeing my dad. It was 2007, 2008, so it's been 10 years. So after that, life went on as normal, blah, blah, blah. And recently, my dad moved back up to Jeff City because he couldn't find any work down there where he lived with his wife, or whatever she is. And he wanted to try to rekindle his relationship with my sister and I, and so it was time. We all kind of felt like it was time to try to forgive and move on and stuff, and he had apologized for what had happened before and wanted to move on from the past from here, and so we accepted his apology, and had been coming down to the house here and spending time with just my sister and I, taking us out to eat or going to the movies or whatever. And then he had been planning this vacation in Branson for some time, and he wanted to take his wife and her family. She has a daughter, and she has a grandchild, a little baby, a 17-month-old, and a niece. And so basically there would be 7 of us. And so we thought, well, why not? It's just a weekend. So my sister and I went on this vacation, and we had a few good moments, there was a few good rides and everything else. My sister and I had fun riding them, but for the most part, the entire weekend was very stressful. I don't have to get into any details there, but it was just, there was a lot of fighting. There was, not a lot of sleep, not a lot of food. Throughout the whole weekend, we were doing a lot of activity, and we were just exhausted by the time Sunday rolled around. We went there with Dad Thursday evening, went on 2 hours of sleep, and by the time Sunday came around, my sister and I were totally exhausted, and we wanted to get home earlier in the afternoon, and my dad and his family, they had to go to a timeshare thing, and that took about 3 hours out of our morning, and then they still wanted to go to Silver City, so we went there, and they spent the afternoon there, the late afternoon. So by the time we got out of there, it was probably around 5 or 5 o'clock ish. Hold on. It was probably about 5 o'clock, 5:30, and they still wanted to go get ice cream. Well, to fill in anybody on this situation, we would have to drive 4 or 3 hours from Branson to their home in Alton, help them unload and unpack their stuff, and then we still had a 4-hour drive from Alton back to our house. And that would put us, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and after the long day that we've had, we were just totally exhausted. And so I asked Dad if we could go on straight home instead of stopping for ice cream first, because they always took forever to do everything. And that ended in a huge fight, and so it got, the screaming and the yelling and the cussing got so bad, I just said, let us out. Well, Dad dropped us off at a Walmart, and I called my husband, and he immediately just left and decided to come pick us up. It was lucky that he was home from work and didn't have to work overtime. And so my sister and I had all of our bags there. We were in Walmart in Branson, which is 110 miles from our house. It was becoming night, and of course Branson, since it's a big city, it's got a lot of crime and everything, and we were just there. And Dad left. He didn't even try to stop us or say it was too dangerous or anything else. And so my husband got there, he picked us up, we came home, we rested, we were happy to be home. It's been a relaxing week. And and nothing has been resolved yet. I'm not doing this to vent. I'm doing this because that's what happened. And it hasn't been the first time my dad's left. It hasn't been the first time we've gotten into a fight and he dropped us back off with Mom because he didn't want to deal with anything. And it just, most people don't understand how much abandonment actually does hurt you. And it hurts you in more than what's obviously obvious for it to hurt you. It makes you doubt, well, if this person left me, why would this person stay? Why would anybody else in my life stay? And with the abandonment issues that I had from my dad, in school, a lot of times I didn't think that my friends would want to stay with me. If my own dad doesn't love me enough to stay in my life, why would any of my friends? So that led to a lot of people pleasing. That led to me just not actually being real with my friends and actually showing who I really was, and kind of acting a little bit more, a little bit different than what I normally was, in small ways, not anything important, not anything major. And even with your own family, it makes you, I know my family loves me a lot. It loves me very, very much. And there's no doubt in my mind about that. But when you're younger, there is that doubt there. Well, if he didn't love me, why would this person love me? And then, of course, that bleeds into your relationships as you try to, date and as you get older and stuff. And so there's a lot of issues that my husband and God, together with me, has had to work through so that I understand that, yeah, my dad didn't love me enough to stay. My dad abandoned me, but that doesn't mean that everybody else in my life will. And I'm 23 years old. I'm an adult. But him leaving, it still leaves a hole even now. It really does hurt. I know God's here. I know God has blessed me with a wonderful family. But there's still this hole that happens from being abandoned by someone who is supposed to love you, who is supposed to take care of you, who is supposed to care for you, who is supposed to have been fixing and mending a relationship with you. And there's a lot of pain there, and all I can do is just turn to God. Now, I'm fortunate that God has blessed me with a lot of father figures in my life, from my Uncle Everett to, my Uncle Warren, my grandfather, my father-in-law. So there are a lot of wonderful men in my life. If I've forgotten anyone, I apologize. If there's a lot of father figures I have in my life, and I'm blessed with that. And then, of course, the best father ever, my Heavenly Father, God. And so there are a lot of people who have probably dealt with abandonment issues, not just from a dad, but from other members of their family. And I just wanted to talk about that today. So that's my testimony. So I feel led to turn to, in Genesis, where, if I can find it, Abraham had a son with his wife's slave, Hagar. And basically, God promised Abraham, who was named Abram at the time, and Sarah, aka Sarai, that they would have a child. Well, they were getting really old and kind of impatient, and so Sarai basically gave her slave to Abraham. And so Abraham got Hagar pregnant, and Hagar had a son named Ishmael. And of course, after that, Sarah got jealous when Hagar actually had the son and everything. In Genesis chapter 16, verse 4, the last part of verse 4, when she, meaning Sarah, when she saw that she, meaning Hagar, was pregnant, her mistress became contemptible to her. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for my suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and when she saw that she was pregnant, I became contemptible to her. May the Lord judge between me and you." And so basically she gets jealous. Hagar runs away because of the harshness and the terrible way that Sarah was treating her. And the angel of the Lord found her, and he said, "Where are you going?" And she's like, "I'm running away from my mistress Sarah." And he's like, "Go." And in verse 9, the angel of the Lord said to her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will greatly multiply your offspring, and they will be too many to count." So on down, we're skipping several verses here. God basically confronted Abraham and Sarah about trying to, take God's plan in their own hands. And so eventually God gave Abraham and Sarah their own son named Isaac. And when Isaac was born, there was some more jealousy between Sarah and Hagar and Isaac and Ishmael. Of course, I gotta find where they were actually. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. Not actually sure. Okay, here we go. This is Genesis chapter 21. Basically, Isaac was born. But Sarah saw the son mocking, the one Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham. So she said to Abraham, "Drive out this slave with her son, for the son of this slave will not be co-heir with my son Isaac." This was very distressing for Abraham because of his son, but God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed about the boy and about your slave. Whatever Sarah says to you, listen to her, because your offspring will be traced through Isaac, and I will also make a nation of the slave's son, because he is your offspring." So early in the morning Abraham got up, took bread and a water skin, put them on Hagar's shoulders, and sent her and her boy away. She left and wandered the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water and the skin was gone, she left the boy under one of the bushes and went and sat at a distance about a bow shot away, and she said, "I can't bear to watch the boy die." While she sat at a distance, she wept loudly. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the boy crying from the place where he is. Get up, help the boy up, and grasp his hand, for I will make him a great nation." And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well, so she went and filled the water skin and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew. He settled in the wilderness and became an archer. He settled in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So, just taking these verses, just imagining Ishmael was technically Ishmael was Abraham's first son. And whenever his son with Sarah was born, Isaac, there was, some jealousy going on, but Abraham basically just gave Hagar and Ishmael away, and he kind of abandoned them in a way. And, God's plan was for Abraham's family to be descended through Isaac. That was always God's plan. Sarah and Abraham took things into their own hands, and thus Ishmael was born. But despite all of that, God was still with Ishmael. He still made a nation from Ishmael, and he still blessed Hagar, he still blessed Ishmael, and he still helped them. And the moment that Abraham sent them away, Hagar and Ishmael both must have felt a little abandoned by Abraham. And the boy was crying, they were dying in the wilderness and everything, so that's a little bit worse than just being 100 miles from home. But they were, the boy was crying, and the verse 21, verse 17 says, God heard the boy crying. And then, of course, the angel of the Lord God appeared to Hagar from heaven. So, it's comforting to know that God's there for you whenever you feel abandoned, whether by friends, whether by family, or whatever's the case is. Like when you feel abandoned, God is there for you, and He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He will never abandon you. He is the one who will be there for you through everything, and He will bless you despite your hardships and despite the things that people have done to you. And the things that people have done to you to cause you pain, God will make everything right. And that's something to comfort on. Joseph is another example. He wasn't just abandoned. His brothers sold him into slavery. And God blessed Joseph and in turn rose Joseph up. And He rose him up so much that even Joseph was basically in control of all of Egypt outside of Pharaoh. And his brothers basically became in great need, and they had to go to Joseph. They didn't know it was Joseph, but they still went to him. They bowed before him, and God rose Joseph up, and He brought justice to Joseph's brothers for what they had done to him, for the wrongs that they had done, and He turned that wrong into something good and allowed Joseph to save all of Egypt from the famine. But Joseph took this political power this political amazing position that God placed him in, and he didn't get wrathful. He didn't do anything bad to his brothers. In fact, he forgave them. He helped them. He tested them to make sure that they had changed. He gave them food, and he also gave their families a place to stay, and he gave them all food, the whole family food, and allowed them to stay there in Egypt, and He took care of them, and He saved them throughout the famine. And I think that takes a huge heart to be able to forgive somebody who has wronged you. But I guess that's the lesson here today, is that when somebody wrongs you, not just when they abandon you, but when they wrong you, we want to lash out in anger. But if we forgive them as best as we can, and trust in God, God will bring justice for the wrongs that they have done. He will rise us up, and He will make sure the justice is served, and possibly even put them in a position where they might need you one day. And then it is our responsibility to forgive those people who have wronged us, and like Joseph did, to care for them, to be nice to them, to be there for them as best as we can. And I think that's a very important lesson to learn today, as hard as it is. And so I challenge you today to forgive someone who has wronged you, and to be nice to someone who needs your love and God's love in their life. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I just want to encourage you, if you need to talk, if you need anything, you can comment on here, or you can, my Facebook page, you can like it. My name is Joanna Marie White on there. I'm available. My email is starwarsFan316@gmail.com. If you need to talk, if you need anything, feel free to open up to me. I will not tell your secrets at all, and I will keep them totally confidential. If you need to chat with a Christian, I'm part of an organization called needhimnow.org. You can get on there and be completely anonymous. They don't know who you are, and you can talk with them about any problem, any issue that you have. I volunteer there. And so, but if you need anything, if you need to talk, if you are going through a similar circumstance, feel free to talk to someone, whether that's me, whether that's an anonymous person on Need 'em Now, or someone in your life that you trust, or a pastor or a church member, because it's important to get these things out and not to let them, build and build on the inside. And God bless you, and I will be praying for all of you. For anyone who is in any pain, I ask the Holy Spirit and God to just heal you and fill you with His Spirit and His peace. And I ask God to bless all of you, and I thank you so much for subscribing and listening to my channel and my videos. Be sure to subscribe. I'm going to get back into my Movie Mondays, Wattpad Wednesdays, Christian Chats on Sunday. I'm going to start doing Saturday songs, which I'm actually going to post tonight because I sang a song today. So that video should be up soon. And possibly even Fun Fridays and more, book promotions and different Christian topics. If there's a topic that you want me to talk about, leave that in the comments. And tell me what you think about abandonment. Are there any other Bible stories or Bible verses that really speak to you about abandonment, or when you've been wronged by other people? But thank you, and have a great day, and God bless.